Hey everyone, and welcome to Backseat Sports. I'm Josh, that is Caleb, and today we have a lot to talk about. I imagine it's going to be a big one. We're breaking down the Georgia Southern game and the madness, the chaos, the destruction that came from it, of course. And then we have a massive game against Oklahoma this week with a new interim head coach in Mickey Joseph. So we'll be breaking down all the expectations for Mickey and for Nebraska heading into this game, and of course the X factors and everything else for a big time game against Oklahoma that could define a lot of Nebraska's future if things were to go the right way. And we'll see what happens. But Caleb, how you doing?
You know, feeling weird. Obviously, this last week has still been crazy, and I think as a Nebraska fan, we just still don't know quite how to feel. There's the knowing of the loss of what is most of our non-conference. We're now rolling into the end of it, and we're 1-2. That is definitely not where we wanted to be. Going to be 1/3 of the way through the season thus far. Scott Frost let the bank vault open one last time in Memorial Stadium. Let an at-large team rob the University of Nebraska for a few $1 million and a win. You know, usually we pay them so that they lose.
It was the second loss to a Sun Belt opponent in the Frost era. You know, lost to Troy in 2019.
What a guy.
I mean, I've always wondered what a mid-season fire feels like. And like you said, it is a weird feeling. Like, it's like, okay, finally we have an answer or at least some sort of solution to the previous problems. But now we're kind of in this intermediate spot. We don't really know what to expect moving forward before a new era starts. But there's a chance where, you know, Mickey Joseph could end up basically earning himself the head coaching job on his own. So that's why it's so interesting now with so much to talk about. So we're going to start off with the Georgia Southern breakdown, talk about all the things we learned in this absolute madness, and then head into talking about Mickey Joseph, Oklahoma, and breaking that game down and predictions near the end of this video. So it's going to be a wild one. Off the rip here with this Georgia Southern game, we paid Georgia Southern $1.4 million to play in this game. They end up beating us in just a barn burner, 45-42. And a night game in Nebraska. I mean, we'll get to the defense, and that was just a disaster in itself. And like we said, this was Clay Helton's basically defining game as Georgia Southern's new head coach, and Kyle Vantrease took it to us. Overall, thoughts on this Nebraska offensive performance in a loss to Georgia Southern?
Our offense did look really good. I mean, it feels like we've been moving in the right direction. The offensive line seemed to look a little bit better this week than last week in some areas. It looked like we had more time to throw with Casey Thompson. Casey threw for over 300 yards yet again. There was just some exciting stuff. Anthony Grant still looked like the real deal. AJ Allen looked nice. There was plenty of good things. This was the most points we had put up this season, 42. And again, Nebraska was 214-0 headed into this game when we scored over 35 points. But obviously, we all know Scott Frost. His era will be known as the statistical anomaly, as just the outlier. I mean, that's a great nickname for him. Scott the Outlier Frost.
It is interesting with the offensive line in this game. And like you said, I mean, they gave up 2 sacks in the first half, but after that, it cleaned up a little bit and looked better in the second. And our offense started finding some rhythm. And like you said, we were utilizing weapons a little bit better in this game. And we saw Trey Palmer making plays. And I mean, Alante Brown actually had the ball in his hands a few times in this game, which is, wow, can you imagine that? And like you said, Casey Thompson, I mean, 3 rushing touchdowns, 4 total touchdowns in the game. And he was probably the highlight. He looked great. Timing there, accuracy there. Really no major mistakes in this game, and nothing that got me really nervous about the future for him. This is the game we were hoping to see from Casey Thompson from the beginning. Just a dominant, overall, well-rounded, accurate passing performance.
It's just very refreshing. Unlike our quarterback from last year, who's rocking like a 34 QBR over there. They're 2-0. They're 2-0. I hear you. I hear you, angry fan in the back.
Yeah. But I mean, it's not because of Adrian Martinez.
No.
Wow. That's going to be, I can't wait to see what happens.
That would be, they threw 4 straight picks, the opponent they played last game.
Yeah.
That does
and I think there was like a kick return touchdown or something like that in there too. As for the offensive line, there was a little bit of a worry there in the second half where Prohaska got hurt and Kevin Williams came in at left tackle. He played about 10 or so snaps and actually looked pretty good. And that might be something we might be looking for here in the future. If Prohaska's out, I'm interested to see more of Kevin Williams, and he looks
definitely
solid.
Yeah, I definitely agree. He looked good in the spring game. We talked about him. as he was probably our most promising looking of the offensive linemen. We knew we were in for a treat of a season with our offensive line when it came to the spring game. I mean, and now knowing what we know of, our defensive line can get zero pressure, but our offensive line still made them look phenomenal.
It all makes sense now.
It all makes just so much sense now. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I think the interesting thing here is that in this game, is at least, running to the left was significantly more effective than running to the right side of the line. On the left side of the offensive line, we averaged 7 yards a carry. On the right side, we averaged 3.9. It was Anthony Grant and AJ Allen cutting back to the left side of the field, and that's where they were finding the green grass. And multiple times in this game, that was what kind of happened there. They really are the truth, and that's what's exciting. I mean, at the end of the day, we know for a fact we got 3 locked in, really 4 or 5 locked in studs on the offensive side, all at the skill positions. It all comes down to the offensive line and whether or not we can see any improvement throughout the season. It does feel like it's getting a little bit better. And like I said, when you have so much confidence in Anthony Grant and AJ Allen making plays, I mean, at this point, like, there's really no reason to see anyone else on the field. The two-headed monster is legit, and it seems like just obviously better, a tier above anyone else we got right now.
Yeah, I like Gabe Irvin and
Ramir.
All those other running backs. Yeah, Ramir.
But man, Yant is buried right now.
Yeah, and Yant too. But the thing is, AJ Allen and Anthony Grant have clearly, shown their steps ahead, and we're just hurting ourselves not handing those two off the football at this point.
Okay, let's move on to the defensive side here and talk about some of these things. There's just too much to talk about, and that's the issue here. We gave up 642 yards of offense, which was the most ever at Memorial Stadium. I mean, if you would have told me like what's the worst case scenario in this game? I'm like, I don't know. We probably give up near 40 points.
400?
Yeah, like 500 yards, kind of like Northwestern, what happened in that game. But 642 and third most in program history. Like I said, most ever in a home game. And we only forced 1 punt all game against Georgia Southern. I do want to say that Georgia Southern is obviously a better team than anyone probably expected them to be this season. The talent's there on the positional side when it comes to the receiving and the running backs. They're nice.
They're definitely not devoid of talent.
Yeah, they're going to be a good team this year. But man, that just should never happen. And truly, I mean, it quite literally could have been the worst defensive performance in Nebraska's history. Yeah. And we got.
I would call it that because the other two teams were UCLA and Oklahoma, which are much more respectable programs. But yeah, it's just ridiculous. 642 yards. I think it just goes back to a thing that Josh and I have been kind of just frustrated about since year one with Shenander, is giving too much respect, giving too much cushion, and just not playing for the first down sticks. Our safeties are way too far back. Again, our corners give just so much cushion.
It's his
5,
philosophy.
6, 7 yards. And this is when there's 4 yards to gain. It's just way too easy for them. We make it so easy. And that's fine when you're playing Ohio State and you have Chris Olave and Jackson Smith and Jigba and tons of weapons. Of course, you're just trying to stop the bleeding.
Right. And we see
and
that
you're trying to keep it in. And that works against Ohio State.
Sort of.
And it can work against great teams. But when you're playing Georgia Southern, you need to trust yourself, trust your defense, and trust your guys to make some plays.
And that was one of our keys to the game going into this game was force Kyle Van Treese to beat you. Get your corners up at the line of scrimmage, disrupt the rhythm. And that was just not happening. I mean, half the time, like we said, there was multiple 3rd and 7s where we're lining up around the first yard down marker and given space all day for him to just hit a little nice out route, and all it takes is just a little bit of a missed tackle or dragging him towards the first down marker, and they were converting first down after first down, and there wasn't much of an adjustment from Eric Shenander throughout the whole game, and that was just incredibly frustrating.
And that's just the thing, granted, Georgia Southern made a couple great plays, 4 or 5 incredible catches, great throws. We need to force them to make a lot more of that to win, because those were icing. That was just icing for them in the game.
Right.
That wasn't needed. And so that's just what's frustrating. And again, just not recognizing what's happening. It's just.
Well, I was going to say is that Van Treese last week nearly broke Georgia Southern's record for all-time passing yards in a game. at like 376.
There's
or whatever
there's no excuse that, there's no film. We knew that they changed their offensive system.
Yeah.
It's a new head coach. And guess what? You could go look at USC. Like he was a head coach there for 7 years if you're really curious. And then you have a whole game to scout where they threw plenty of times.
Yeah.
And
not to mention, like, realistically, we said last week, what was the one thing we said? They want to throw screen passes, out routes, and slants. It's all they want to do. And that's what Van Treese did. He only averaged 7.3 yards per completion and even less than that per attempt. I mean, a very low average depth of target. And it was working because we didn't force him to do anything else. We didn't really force him to beat us deep. And it was just death by 1,000 little knife cuts because it was just terrible.
Yeah, it was just great sustained drives by them because, again, our linebackers can't tackle. They can't cover in space. And again, it looked like there was really only a couple defensive players out there.
I mean, I do think that part of it is the scheming and it's how we like to do it. But I do agree, like the front four has just been abysmal and like just a lack of any type of aggression in the gaps. And it's just like, there's an obvious difference and something missing here between us and other teams in the Power Five when it comes to how we attack anyone near the line of scrimmage, especially our front seven. I mean, we had 37 total tackles in the first half. And 4 of the 5, leaders in tackles were defensive backs. Our D backs are literally the only guys making plays.
Yeah, it's literally the second level every time has to make a play. Our safeties are having to bail us out 15 yards down the field because my goodness, shout out Colton Feist. Every single time he's in position to make a tackle, the dude, I mean, he turns into spaghetti noodles.
No, dude, he's like a bomb pop on the 4th of July. That thing
just melts.
Yeah, dude.
I mean, it's incredible. Like he's there, he gets his arms around them, and it's like he's a ghost. He's transparent. It's spooky season all the time with Colton Feist because literally he can't touch anybody. It's incredible.
Yeah. Well, I know last week we did an update on the missed tackles leaderboards, and so this week we have another one. Good news. We have a tie for first place now with Nick Henrich and Miles Farmer for the most missed tackles, 5-5, with Luke Reimer coming in at number 3 with 4. So,
shout out, Nick Henrich did that in one game, guys.
Yes.
Record breaker and setter. Obviously, if he was still playing, it'd be untouchable at the moment. But because of his injury, shout out, others are sneaking on the leaderboard.
So, I mean, I do want to focus on some of the positives. I mean, at the end of the day, like you said, Marquez Buford seems to be the real deal. Obviously, 2 INTs in this game. Well, that's the thing.
Huge plays for us.
We had 2 INTs, and they screwed up their halftime final drive there with missed clock management. We were blessed. And we had 2 picks, and we didn't have a turnover.
We were +2 on the turnover ratio, and we lost. What is the Twilight Zone?
It's literally. What's the worst case scenario timeline? I think we're on it for this defense right now.
100% for Nebraska, especially for the last few years.
So it's just the problem is that the talent up front they're just not winning their ones, and that was even talked about for Frost in his post game. It's like we're just not winning our battles up front, and like when you're not winning those, it's like what are you gonna do? And that was a big part of it. But at the same time, like obviously right now, no linebacker looks good. I mean, Hausman, he's a true freshman. So, I mean, how much can you even expect from him? He shouldn't have never even probably been playing in the first place. But obviously with Henrich out and Reimer has looked absolutely awful. And so it's just a struggle right now with Klarvik not looking good.
Klarvik looks slow.
The front seven is just in shambles.
Yeah, Gifford's the only one that looks like he knows how to tackle at all on the linebacking core, and he mostly plays nickel anyway. It's a mess
with a lack of pressure as well too. And like we were hoping, and obviously that was one of like the keys to the season was
someone should
on
tell
an upgrade with increased
Garrett
pressure.
Nelson that you can make more than one play a game. Like you can actually, I mean, you can make he makes one great play, but it's actually possible.
It's the one play. You're like, where has that been all game? What a freaking play.
It's like in the fourth quarter, the third quarter, you're like, oh, exciting! There he is. He can play defense. Like, and we need to see more than that. And again, Win looks okay. Win looks solid.
Devin Drew hasn't looked great either. So it's like Win's the one player I feel fairly confident in right now. Ty Robinson's still out snapping them. Robinson had 50 saps. Win and had Ty 41.
Robinson, by the way, is by far the worst of all of our D tackle.
Defensive players.
That's fair. But Nick Henrich or him, straight up defensive players, like they're the worst.
Yeah, 41 saps for Win, 40 for Drew, and 48 for Feist. So We need to see Wynn having more than Robinson and Feist. That has to happen moving forward. As for the corners, I mean, Tommy Hill had another subpar game and even at one point got benched for a second for the recently added player Brandon Moore from UCF, who Frost had said is like his best buddy. But then
to him.
And then Moore's first snap has an infraction on 3rd and 5.
Like father, like son.
And then they bench him. And so then they bring Tommy back in. But Tommy did not have a good game. And so that's really disappointing to see after his fantastic debut against Northwestern.
Yeah, we're really excited about it.
Having 2 games in a row that are just disappointing.
Yeah, I agree with you. And Miles Farmer, by the way, what a disappointment this season as well. I mean, a guy that we thought was experienced and could really do well. And it's been a lot of missed tackles from him.
He's been good in coverage. It's just he is disgustingly terrible around the line of scrimmage.
Yeah. And tackling, and we bring him up there, but again, we need him to tackle around the line of scrimmage because the defensive tackles aren't going to do it and the linebackers aren't going to do it, so somebody has to.
I mean, that's the problem, is like O'Shawn Mathis is just not a well-rounded enough player, and so
he's a pass rusher. That's it.
Yeah, and so like him and Gary Nelson him and Caleb Tanner are splitting time, and Caleb Tanner's solid, but again, just lacks upside. He's been a decent tackler, but he lacks explosiveness.
Yeah. Well, that's our whole linebacker score in a nutshell.
So, as you can tell, we're really optimistic about this team.
Yeah, I mean, our defense. I mean, Josh, I said it before the season started that JoJo and Cam Taylor-Britt were the Band-Aids that put that defense together.
Well, I mean, and Ben Stilley. I mean, I don't think we can underestimate the 6th-year senior leadership of JoJo Doman and Ben Stilley on this defense. Not to mention the patchwork.
Deontay Williams.
Yeah, Deontay Williams and Markel Dismuke, the 4 6th-year seniors on that team. And we were worried about replacing them, and it's just been the problem. Like you said, JoJo's been the obvious just missing piece. Isaac Gifford's been all right. And the exact thing that JoJo was the best at was where Isaac Gifford got exposed in this game. Downfield coverage a few times, got beat on some of those wheel routes towards the sidelines. And that's literally where JoJo Doman was like one of the best players in the country at last year. And so just that alone can make a big difference.
I mean, that's just a great thing I just want to mention too. Like, we are so bad in zone. Like, our guys look
really,
so
we should never play it again.
Confused.
We should just only play man.
We should only play, like, it's so bad. And, like, I think Isaac Gifford, like, they're trying to hand off guys to one another. Those, they're getting levels routes are coming in on them. Who's got who?
Yeah, Hossman's been real bad in zone.
Yeah, it's just been a massive miscommunication. And there's just always a breakdown.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I'm literally like, I'm so sick of just getting beat by these little out routes and quick comebacks and slants that I'm down to just get burned deep. There is a world where, I mean, Trev Albert said it himself. He'll support Mickey Joseph in any decision he wants to make. It's not out of the question that Eric Shenander could be canned mid-season as well if the right opportunities came up for another coach to come in.
It just feels weird. I don't know how that would happen.
Yeah. There's been rumors and rumblings of it throughout Husker Nation
like
online.
Maybe like Applewhite, who came in, could take more of the defensive role. I mean, that would probably make more sense than.
Yeah, at this point, I don't see it as likely, but it is something to at least keep in the back of your mind that it is.
I mean, I'd like somebody else to call the plays at this point because, my goodness.
Agreed. Obviously, that's kind of our thoughts on this defense right now where we're at. It's ugly. It's hard to be that optimistic about it right now, and it doesn't seem like we have that many answers. We brought in like Ativa Maga Clements, and he gave up. He was one of the big reasons for why that run went for like 60 yards.
That was a bummer.
That really sucked. There are a lot of question marks, and we're hoping to see and find some answers here moving forward. So I want to talk just real quickly about Scott Frost, obviously, and the transition to Mickey Joseph here before we get into the Oklahoma game. So obviously, if you haven't heard yet, you're really out of loop. Scott Frost was fired from Nebraska, and Mickey Joseph is the interim head coach, which it basically locks in that Mickey Joseph is the guy we want to keep for sure, guaranteed no matter what going into next season. And, the question was, was Whipple going to be the potential interim, or was it going to be Mickey Joseph? And it ends up being Mickey Joseph. And that's going to affect how this team looks moving forward against Oklahoma.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what happens. Again, interim head coach is completely new territory for us. I mean, the only one I can think of is Barney Cotton on the bowl game, which was a very close bowl game when that happened after Bo Pelini got fired. I'm excited for Mickey Joseph. Really like him, obviously. He's just put in a tough spot. We have 9 games to really turn stuff around. He's great for recruiting, so he's a great face to have for Nebraska football.
Oh, man.
Just so successful. I'm very happy. Again, he definitely just represents Nebraska football.
Oh, with the
very
history
well.
too and everything. It
Yeah,
just makes so
exactly.
much sense. I do think it's interesting though, and we talked about this in the video yesterday with the potential future Husker coach. If the team responds well and we come out and compete and these things are close, or if the best case scenario, the miracle turnaround happens and we start beating teams like Oklahoma or competing and ripping off some wins, then man, the hype will be unreal in Lincoln if that ends up being the case. Let's transition here into the Oklahoma game. Number 6, Oklahoma travels to Lincoln, Nebraska to play the Cornhuskers this week. Right now, the Vegas odds are surprisingly reasonable. Oklahoma's 11.5-point favorites. It opened at 17. It's been bet down now to 11.5 with a 65.5 or 65-point over under.
The hope is real.
The hope is real. I mean, it seems like a lot of bettors are banking on Nebraska playing close games against great teams, just like last season. Obviously, Nebraska played a really competitive close game against Oklahoma in Norman. And there were options for Nebraska to win it. And so obviously now there's a ton of changes at Nebraska. There's a ton of changes at Oklahoma in this offseason with now first-year head coach Brent Venables against now first-time head coach Mickey Joseph. Thoughts on this Oklahoma team coming to Nebraska? We kind of start here on the offensive side and examining their first 2 games. With
their offense, Dillon Gabriel, the quarterback, UCF, he teamed up with Jeff Levy, his former coordinator, and he's been very good. Oklahoma is number 6 in the country right now. They're 2-0. They beat UTEP 45-13, and they beat Kent State 33-3. There's just a little hope in there. They were down to Kent State 3-0 in the second quarter.
Like 5 or 6 minutes to go. I mean, Kent State was playing them close.
So you're saying there's a chance?
For sure.
Yeah, Dillon Gabriel throwing for 72%. He's thrown 5 touchdowns and 529 yards in 2 games. And he's obviously hasn't really been touched there in the backfield with the 2 opponents he's had. Man, does he throw a good ball though? A nice left-handed throw. I'm biased.
I mean, dude, he does throw a really accurate ball with really tight spirals, and he throws it hard. I mean, it's an impressive cannon, and it is really nice coming off the hand.
Yeah, and their running backs are really good too. They also have a 2-headed monster with Eric Gray and Marcus Major.
They're both pretty built. It's a pretty similar situation. Like they both have different skill sets, but at the same time, they got juice. I mean, Marcus Major had a gorgeous little touchdown with a nice juke against Kent State, and Eric Gray had some burst runs versus UTEP. There was one from the goal line. He just ripped it off and looked really quick through the hole. They're both incredibly impressive, and they scare me a lot.
They'll be a nice challenge for our very stout defense. Their wide receiver, they also have another stud, shocker, Marvin Mims. He looked just really good, very fast, great catches. He has 10 catches, 244 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He's a deep threat. We saw Gabriel just toss it into double coverage with him. It was a great ball, but then also just ridiculously good catches too. So he is going to be a problem on Saturday.
For sure. I mean, there's just times where you're like, how is he so open? How are they blowing coverage like this? And it's like, oh, he just made a nice route. That was beautiful. So he's a really good route runner, and he obviously has the speed to back it up. We saw him in that final drive against Kent State. He basically caught 3 straight balls. It was like two straight little curl routes towards the sideline, basically 15 yards, 17 yards. And then, of course, Gabriel has just a few extra seconds to throw, and then there he is wide open downfield, and bang, they're right back in the game, and they have all the momentum, and then they start blowing them out in the second half. So they are dangerous, and they can make big play after big play.
Also, tight end Braden Willis is also pretty interesting. He's a 5th-year senior. The dude's just big, and Nebraska's problem with covering the tight ends over the last few years.
That's the thing. I don't know if we have a guy that really matches up very well against him. Isaac Gifford's going to be undersized in that type of matchup, and then so you're going to be relying on Luke Reimer to make those plays. So that does also scare me a lot to see a guy like that out on the field. And like you said, Theo Weiss as well, a 5-star wide receiver that he missed most of last year with a pretty bad foot injury, but he's got the speed too, and they've got a lot of athleticism on the outside. So they got playmakers all over the field, and their offensive line is solid as well. I wouldn't say I was blown away by the performances in those first 2 games, but they did what they needed to do against those types of teams. And like we said, Gabriel had all day to throw. The pass protection was very solid. And when you pair that with talented running backs, they found the holes and made plays. So it's a very balanced, talented offense.
Now, on the other side of the ball for Oklahoma, on their defense, they run a 3-4, and they have some great talent there too. Danny Stutzman, a linebacker, he's a true sophomore with 2 career starts. He had 12 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, and a sack. And then on the season, he has 21 tackles, 15 solo, and he's 7th nationally. And he did look really good. Just really some pop on those hits that he has. The shoulder pads, definitely some plastic on the plastic. Yeah,
man.
A nice crack sound. And yeah, he's made some great stops to just stop running backs dead in their tracks. So he definitely,
he's one of those guys that stepped up. I mean, because obviously they were trying to replace like Nick Benito and Brian Asamoah, who got drafted. And I mean, that's a guy that stepped right in and has looked really good so far in his first 2 starts. And you got to be impressed with that. And like you said, like their defense is interesting because like I wouldn't say it's been like unbelievable, but again, a very balanced defense, and their front 7 looks very solid, especially their defensive line. Like a guy like Isaiah Coe, number 94, defensive tackle. He was very disruptive in these first 2 games. Fast for his size, hits hard, tackles well. He looked really good in these games, and it just makes me so jealous to see a disruptive D tackle like that who can just make plays at the point of attack. It's like, man, it's just beautiful. It brings a tear to my eye.
It's just great, like seeing that they know where the hole is coming, what the offense wants them to do, and then they just take their guy and just be like, nope, we're going this way, and we're sealing that gap, and you're going to be the one closing it. So there's going to be nowhere to go. It's just nice to see. Reggie Grimes too. He has 4 sacks already. He's 5th in the country. And safety Billy Bowman is a really solid safety as well. Again, their secondary, if there was a weakness, it's probably there. But that Brett Venables sauce has already shown up. They just tackle so well. Hard. They have a little bit more grit and toughness.
I think that run defense really jumped out on the film. It's just how dominant they were getting in the backfield. There were plays where it's like, there's 5 guys in the backfield right now hitting this running back right as he touched the ball. It's like, oh my gosh, what happened? They weren't as effective at getting to the quarterback a lot of the times, but at the same time, Kent State had an unbelievably impressive quarterback.
Yeah.
The dude was tearing him up, which was really cool to see. So keep your eye on this Josh Allen 2.0. I think there is going to be some opportunities there to move the ball against his defense. And they were attacked across the middle of the field a lot. And we saw a lot of plays towards the sidelines as well, towards the outside, that were completing passes. And they were giving up yardage, but they were just doing a great job inside the red zone of converting, getting stops on 3rd down, kept the points off the board.
I'll be really excited to see how we match up.
Yeah. So let's get into some of the things we kind of want to see from Nebraska in this game. Not before we get into the keys and X factors. So off the rip, of course, 2 players who are expected to return at this point. We're recording before the official Mickey Joseph press conference, so we won't have official word on these things. But Nick Henrich should be returning in this game defensively. And probably the biggest piece here is Travis Vokalek on the offensive side of the ball should be returning as well. And we saw how dominant he was on the field when he was on the field in the first game against Northwestern. And our offense didn't look the same when he was out.
Yeah, I mean, he was so good on both the running and catching side. Like, he was just, again, so balanced. Chandler Brewington has definitely been a very solid blocking body, but having both of them with a chance to be on the field is great. And again, Vokalek keeps you honest. Well, Chandler Brewington, yes, he does have 1 touchdown. He's not really as much of a passing threat.
He's not that
as
3rd
Vokalek
down
is.
threat. Vokalek is.
Yeah, exactly. He's a guy that he's just such a big target that around the sticks, you can expect him to make a big play, and he's tough to take down. So it'll be great to have him back on the field.
For sure. I agree. So those are the 2 big things for sure. But obviously, the most interesting thing heading into this game is the potential changes that we might see with Mickey Joseph, whether it's personnel changes. And obviously, one big effect of losing Scott Frost means that Mark Whipple is going to have full control of game plan. He's free of the game plan and play calling. So we're going to see a 0 Scott Frost influenced offense, which whether there will be much change or not will be interesting to see. And I think that's something all Nebraska fans will be keeping their eye on this game.
The keys to winning this game, it's going to be no easy task. We obviously a lot of turmoil and stuff around that, but it's going to be on our offense a lot. Casey's going to need to keep the ball and throw early. Again, getting the ball out quickly is going to be important. Their pass rush is there for us, and our offensive line as we all know, is a little bit suspect. So just getting the ball to the targets, to our weapons, because Trey Palmer, Alante Brown, those guys are going to be able to make plays for us, going to be able to get yards for us.
When it comes to like Casey keeping the ball, I think that's directly relating to reads, because we saw at Kent State and UTEP many times their quarterback actually had a handful of opportunities to rip off some nice, 7 to 15 yard runs, because Oklahoma definitely schemes for the running back on any type of read. And so I think it's going to be coming down to Casey to probably take a few hits in this game and get some probably key first downs, because it was working for both teams they played before this. And likely, I think it could work for us too. And we saw Casey do it this last week. He had a few nice runs this week and making some plays. I think the more we're seeing Casey with the ball in his hands, I'm liking what I'm seeing for sure. So we got to figure out more ways to get the ball out of Casey's hands quicker. Like we said, I mean, Kent State and UTEP both had success across the middle of the field too, and with those quick comeback routes. So I fully expect to see Trey Palmer and probably Marcus Washington and Alante Brown really have some success there in these little short 7-8 yard plays.
Yeah, I mean, on single coverage, both UTEP and Kent State had big plays on the passing when it was single coverage, and a few pass interference calls too. But like, their guys were be able to beat them. So I really think that we can win some one-on-one matchups, especially on the sidelines. If they go single high safety again, Brett Venables is very aggressive, so that's why some of those middle of the fields, some of that is more open, because he's willing to take some chances. And if we can step in there, give Casey enough time, we're going to capitalize.
Yeah, no doubt. So I think the last thing is just we got to find ways to get creative in this run game, because their run defense is going to be legit. So it comes down to like, how do we scheme this? I think we're going to give them a lot of different looks, end arounds, sweeps, getting to the outside with Anthony Grant. Maybe just, you got to figure out some ways to get some pitch plays, some option plays. Like, we need to throw the playbook at them in this sense. And I don't feel like we've shown our whole playbook throughout these first few weeks. At least it hasn't felt like that. And so I'm really hoping we have a lot to implement this week and can pull it all out and put it all on the table here against Oklahoma in a game that could define all of these coaches' seasons and careers here in Nebraska. Some defensive keys for Nebraska here. It's easier said than done, but obviously UTEP and Kent State could not get to Dillon Gabriel. We got to scheme some ways to find some pressure here. And whether that's just getting incredibly aggressive, I think it's worth it. And a key to the game for me is do whatever it takes to get pressure on Dillon Gabriel, at least sometimes in this game, to get the ball.
Hopefully
out of his hands
it works.
quick.
I mean, we've zero blitz before this year, and like, we literally just still couldn't get to him. Like, we gotta find some way to, like you said, we gotta find some way to get some pressure, because my goodness, it's ridiculous.
I mean, the stunts haven't been working. It's just been nothing that's worked so far.
I mean, Cloud Mims with Buford all game.
There you go.
Put it on double coverage. Yeah, we need him. We're going to have to somehow slow the game down.
That's what's tough, though, is
when
you have enough athletes around the field like Oklahoma does, it gets tough to require a double team on Mims at all times. But I do agree, like, we're going to have to see what Quentin Newsome and Buford can do there. If anything, I would say, like, Buford, I mean, he's the most well-rounded player we have on the defense. If anything, I'd rather have him near the line of scrimmage trying to make plays, and then you keep Miles Farmer away, as far away from the line of scrimmage as you can. Because obviously he's a liability around there. At least Buford can lay the wood and make some plays.
Yeah, I mean, Farmer tries to, he just
misses,
uses his head. He just puts his head down and doesn't know where he's going. So, great form tackling from Nebraska. It's going to be tough on the defensive end, but obviously winning the turnover battle is going to be incredibly important on the defense. We're going to need picks, but then we're going to need stops. More than anything, we need stops. And obviously, they need to punt more than one time. So we have to figure out a way to do that.
Easier said than done. Okay, with that said, let's get into our predictions here and go through this. So where are you at with this Nebraska-Oklahoma game? Obviously, the spread right now, like I said earlier, 11.5, 65 point over under. What's your prediction?
Feeling down bad at the moment because of the Georgia Southern game, but excited for Mickey Joseph. Hopefully that's some switch. I just don't know if it's going to be here where it's going to matter, where it's going to be more of those close games where, like, with Indiana, Illinois, I think Mickey Joseph will and can be a difference for us.
And it's only been 6 days. Like, we have a bye week next week. Like, those types of things.
This is a really tough turnaround. I'm not expecting anything from him except, to be a great ambassador. Nebraska loses 41-24. I think we'll find a way to keep it respectable somehow. I mean, I think we're capable of more points. I just think that we're going to get sacked a few too many times, and I think turnovers are just going to be a problem. They're
because
just
of the pressure.
Yeah, it's going to put us behind.
I mean,
the
there could be some fumbles too. I mean, they hit so hard, and they definitely ripped at the ball a lot in those games.
It's definitely going to be a challenge for our running backs that we haven't quite seen before. I think they're up for that challenge, but I do agree.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's exciting, though, is like if we do run the ball well against Oklahoma, then the upside for the rest of the season is pretty high.
Yeah,
I think so. There is some opportunities here to really judge where we're at, especially offensively. And of course, it presents a huge opportunity defensively to take a huge step forward. So it's hard to be optimistic after you give up 600 plus yards to Georgia Southern, and then you play Oklahoma the next week, 6-7 days later. Like, it's just hard to see the narrative for this defense to keep this even close. Like we said, in a game where you have 2 turnovers and they screw up at the goal line and you still lose, like, it's just, it's hard for me to see the defensive narrative. That's really just, it comes down to that. So I do think Oklahoma's going to have a lot of success on the ground, and then we're probably going to find 1 or 2 plays over the top on play action because it's what they like to do with Lebby there. So I'm going to take Oklahoma 45-28. So I think we can put up a few more points there, and there's probably some upside for us to put up upwards over 30 as well. Probably depends how well Casey Thompson plays and how bad that pressure is, like you said. But I do think there's going to be some opportunities across the middle of the field. And I still think that we could find ways to run the ball here. And like I said, I'm excited to see Whipple's own offense in this game. And that's probably some upside inherently too.
Yeah, I mean, I was excited. Like, especially this last game, like our offense, like we were down, we drove down the field and we gave our defense a place to put away this game. Like, the offense did exactly what they needed to do. They did finish. They were clutch in the moment. Like, so it's tough when the defense
is only forcing 1 punt against Georgia Southern.
Again,
then you play Dillon Gabriel.
I love what Casey Thompson said. I can only focus on what I can control. I play offense.
Yeah.
And obviously that is a giant dig as the defense, as it should be. But also, he scored 42 points and he looked great. He had his best game of the season. And again, the whole offense did. So hopefully that if we can show some promise, again, like you said, of scoring some points against Oklahoma, again, which does look like a solid defense, it'll bring a lot of hope for the rest of the season.
Yeah, for sure. So drop all your comments down below. We want to see what you guys have to say. Your thoughts on Mickey Joseph and this Husker team. Obviously, the upside where you see this going for Nebraska football and everything else. We'd love to see all your predictions and thoughts down below. We always appreciate the kind comments and the not so kind ones. But hit the subscribe button. I know a lot of you aren't subscribed but are watching right now. So what's up with that? Hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. And, we've been getting the videos out pretty consistently. So be on the lookout for more coming soon. We appreciate you guys for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Should have if you guys really enjoyed it. But as always, guys, I'm Josh. That was Caleb. This has been Backseat Sports. And we will see you next time.
Go Big Red.
Big Red, baby.